I'm gonna
I know it.
get us started off here at 6 o'clock, so we might have quite a few people that are attending and would like to speak. Sorry, my lighting is so bad, but I don't want to waste any time with that. So I'd like to call to order the Canandaigua Town Board meeting for January 11th, 2021. I am Kathy Menakatz. I'm the town supervisor. I'd like to recognize Councilman Gary Davis to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. Is Gary with us?
He is, but maybe he's on mute.
All right, I'll start us off then.
Perfect.
Pledge allegiance
Just
To
to
the
the
flag
flag
of
of
the
the
United
United States of America,
and to
and
the
to the
republic
Republic
for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
one nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty and
liberty
justice for all.
justice for all.
Thanks, everyone. At this time, I would ask that our town clerk first call the roll.
Yes, Councilman Gary Davis. He is here, right? So you just
I saw
unmuted?
him, but I don't see him right now.
Just ask him to unmute. I changed the names, just so everybody, I'm sorry, I changed the town board members' names to town board members so that we could find them in a group easier.
Oh, there's Gary.
Yeah.
Is that working now?
There you
There
go.
you are.
You're with us.
All right, we'll start roll call again. Councilman Gary Davis,
Present.
Councilwoman Linda Dvorak,
Present.
Councilman Terry Fennelly,
Present.
Supervisor Kathy Menakatz,
Present.
Councilman Jared Simpson.
Present.
Thank you, Jean. Can you now also confirm that the meeting was properly advertised?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. At this time, attached to the agenda for your review, if you accessed it online, is written communications, which you can review at your leisure. If you don't have them, we'd be happy to provide them for you. I'd also like to recognize the birthdays for this cycle from January 11th to February 7th. January 20th, we have Charles Euler, who I believe is joining us here, so happy birthday. February 3rd, Judge Jones, and February 6th, John Berry. Happy birthday to all of our town employees celebrating birthdays. I'd like to address before we go any further, as I'm sure most of you are here for the public hearings. We have various times when you can speak. I'll let you know now that our rules for the town give 3 minutes. While others are speaking, if you could please mute yourselves, because we have a large group here, and it will, if you have printers going in the background or families living their lives behind you, it can get very distracting. So if you could, before we proceed, if you are not speaking, if you could mute yourself, other than town board members, that would be great. When we get to the public hearings, I'll give a little more information about how that will go forward. So at this point, we have our first privilege of the floor. This is not the public hearing at this point, but if anyone wishes to be heard, if you could use the raise your hand function, which is on the bottom of the Zoom, we would be happy to do that, to recognize you. And if someone could monitor the chat as well. Okay, I don't see anyone at this point. We'll have other opportunities in case we missed you. Priority business, we have none. And before we proceed to the public hearing, we have a presentation by our town manager, Doug Finch, which hopefully will answer a lot of your questions before we get to the public hearing. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for joining us. We really do appreciate it. We have a lot of people, so we're going to try to make this as smooth as possible. And we will learn along the way as we all try to get through this. But the good point is about Zoom is that we can have many people join us. So welcome. And Doug, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Supervisor. Just wanted to make sure that I was looking at a couple of monitors, so you should be able to see the beginning of the PowerPoint presentation here. So I'm going to take a few moments and just kind of go through a variety of things that led us to this point here this evening. And hopefully this will answer some of your questions. And as the town supervisor was saying, we'll have plenty of opportunity to hear from the public during the public hearing in the next portion of the agenda. So we're here today, obviously January 11th. We are very much, and I use this word intentionally, exploring additional public access to Canandaigua Lake. I've heard all kinds of different things over the last few weeks. Here's what I'll tell you. No final decision has been made to this point. No decision will be made tonight. No prices have been determined. Use has not been finalized at either parcel. Neither parcel would be purchased by the end of January. Public hearings will continue for January, February, possibly even longer. And the purchase, if it moves forward, of 4351 Tishner Point Drive is subject to permissive referendum. So I just want to get all that out of the way right at the very beginning, because I've heard all kinds of things about that, but we're still in this exploring phase. This is an opportunity, as it says there, to learn more about the options, to hear from residents during a series of public hearings. Nothing will be decided this evening. So just kind of an overview of this presentation. I'm going to talk about kind of what's going on, the town budget, why we're exploring now, some of the requests that we've heard from residents. I'll touch on the Canandaigua Lake Water Trail, some swim public access points currently, dig into these two opportunities to purchase, specifically some possible future use, and then the impact to budgets. And I'll touch on a couple of questions that have been forwarded to me. So that's kind of where we're at here. So we're going to talk about finances a little bit later in this presentation. So in order to do that, I need to talk to you about the town budget. All right. So the town budget, the tax rate for the town of Canandaigua is $1.03 per $1,000 of assessed value. Here's the whole big list of everything that you get that's included in that $1.03 per $1,000. That includes all the town hall operations, the town operations, your town board, your clerk, the town manager's office. That includes facilities and finance and grants and budgeting, planning, zoning, code enforcement, court, street road striping, lighting, police enhanced law enforcement services, committee operations, citizen engagement. All that stuff falls under the general fund. Town highway operations, road plowing, treatment, safety, road construction, that all falls under the highway fund, but it's combined with that town tax rate of $1.03. The transfer station, parks and recreation programs, that all falls into that town tax rate of $1.03. And for comparison, we always put this in the budget every single year, but the right at the very beginning, the town tax rate for the town of Canandaigua was $1.03 per $1,000. You see where the little red arrow points to. For comparison, you see some of the other municipalities around us, town of Farmington at $1.10, town of South Bristol, all the way up, city of Canandaigua, $7.45 $1,000, city of Geneva, $17.13 in the Canandaigua School District. So, you know, the town of Canandaigua, as a homeowner myself in the town of Canandaigua and a resident, the town tax rate of $1.03 is a pretty good deal, all things considered, for all the services that we get. The town budget at $11.6 million for 2021. That's comprised of a variety of different things. The town budget equates to 30 different funds, 30 different portions make up the town's budget at $11.6 million. So that includes the general fund of $4.4 million, the highway fund of $3.3. That combined is that 7.9 number that comes up with that $1.03 per $1,000. Your revenue sources, sales tax makes up the overwhelming majority of the revenue that comes in for the town of Canandaigua. Mortgage tax, state aid, property tax, user fees, other services and specified fund transfers. So the property tax levy is $1.4 million. That's what that town tax rate comes up to, that $1.03. How do we figure that out? Just real quick to touch on that. So the general and highway fund, $7.9 million. We add up all of these, all the expenses here, $7.9 million. Then we add up all of our anticipated sources of revenue. We say, okay, what's missing in order to have a balanced budget? On the general and highway fund is $7.9 million. So the missing amount here is $1,425,000. So how do we figure out the town tax rate to make up that difference of that $1.4 million? Well, then simply what we do, the town's total assessed value is $1.6 billion. The taxable assessed value for the town of Canandaigua is 1.3 million. That's as of March of 2020. So then what we do is we take the missing amount, that 1.4 million, we divide it by the taxable assessed value divided by 1,000, and that comes up with that town tax rate of $1.03 per $1,000 of assessed value. The 2021 town budget is tax cap compliant. There is a resolution on tonight's agenda that would adopt a local law to rescind the tax cap override law that we adopted last year. I know I've heard some confusion about that, but the town budget is tax cap compliant. And you can see here, it's actually compliant by amount of $48,000. So that means we do not need the law that allows us to override the tax cap that was adopted last year. So what we would do tonight, if the town board chooses to move forward, they would rescind that local law that they adopted last year and then fully make the 21 town budget tax cap compliant. So what do those town taxes mean? That $1.03 per thousand. What does that really mean? So what I'm showing you here, the average house in the town of Canandaigua is assessed for just under $300,000. Now I know that there's some houses that are assessed a lot more. There's some houses that are assessed less, but the average in the town of Canandaigua is $300,000. So what I did for you here is I'm showing you 4 actual examples of 4 homes in the town of Canandaigua and what their assessed value is, and then what their town taxes is. You can also see what the total tax bill is. And I know that I hear comments all the time, we pay a lot in taxes. And yes, you and I collectively, we do pay a lot in taxes. But on this $300,000 house, this $303,000 house, of that $7,900 total tax bill, $310.45 is what comes to the town of Canandaigua. $5,736 goes to the school district, $1,924 goes to the county, and then that $310.45 is what goes to the town here, right here. Same for the $1.2 million house. Yes, the total tax bill is $31,000, but the town portion is only $1,240. Only. That's a lot of money, granted, but comparison of what I'm trying to show you. This is going to come in later in the presentation. This is why I'm taking the time to talk about this right now. $73,000 on this $2.8 million home total tax bill. Yes, the town portion is $2,800. And then on the $4.8 million home, the town portion is $4,900. So those are actual tax bills for those 4 homes. So why are we exploring right now? Well, first and foremost, there's 2 parcels that have become available. 3950 County Road 16 and 4351 Tishner Point Drive. Record low bonding interest rates right now. Net interest cost on July 16th, 2020, we did what's called a bond anticipation note for a water project that we're required to do. We were able to get a 0.71% interest rate for that bond anticipation note. Just 2 months later, we had to do the second relating to that project. We had to do the second bond anticipation note. And you can see there on October the 7th of 2020, we were able to get an interest rate of 0.55% interest, a net interest cost. So very record low interest rates you see there on the graph. There's a variety of different things at play here. There's reserve funds, there's ability, there's grants, and of course these record low municipal bonding rates. And the town of Canandaigua enjoys a AA2 bond rating. I want to touch on citizen requests. Why is it? We didn't just sit back and say, okay, let's go explore this. We've had requests from residents over the years. As a matter of fact, over the last 13 years, 5 different professional firms between the year 2007 and 2020 have been hired by the town of Canandaigua during that 13-year period. And every single time the results and the residents have come back and said, please explore more public access to Canandaigua Lake. So we had what's called, and actually our former director of Parks and Recreation is here this evening with us, Dennis Brewer, but Dennis helped to lead in 2017 and 18 a updated and a whole new Parks and Rec master plan for the town of Canandaigua. And this is the front cover of it. You can see a whole slew of meetings that took place all throughout 2017. Into 2018. There was public opinion surveys. 80% of the respondents to the survey said that they were town residents. 28% of the residents identified themselves as between the age of 35 and 44, with 26% between the age of 45 and 64. The survey was put out through a SurveyMonkey link that was posted through all of our social media. It was posted on the website. It was attached in the water bills that went out to all of our water users. It was online. We did newsletters. We did press releases, all associated that, hey, the town of Canandaigua is updating a comprehensive Parks and Rec master plan. We would like your input. Some of the other things that came out of this, specifically one of the findings of the Parks and Rec master plan, specifically on page 71, and all these documents are on the town's website, it says, acquiring lake access should be a continuing goal, and when a parcel becomes available, the town should not hesitate to evaluate the parcel and obtain if suitable. That is exactly where we're at. No decisions have been made. We're evaluating. We're going through this process. We want to hear from you. We want to talk about, is this suitable or not? A variety of other things have come up in the Parks and Rec master plan, as we heard from residents, the exploring the lake access, obviously, as well as implementing assets associated with the water trail for the town of Canandaigua along Canandaigua Lake. Whole variety of other things. There was a park utilization exercise that was done as part of that Parks and Rec master plan. You can see that 60% of the respondents said they used the Westlake Schoolhouse, with 90% of the respondents saying that they used Ononda Park. All the other parks were also evaluated. I mentioned the other documents. I just want to touch on this. In 2003, the town of Canandaigua adopted back in 2003, 17, almost 18 years ago now, I guess it was 18 years ago, the town of Canandaigua adopted a comprehensive plan that was adopted after 3 years of public engagement, surveys, and input, including public meetings. There was meetings at the school, there were meetings at the academy, a whole variety of different places that were held. In 2011, there was a comprehensive plan that was update that was adopted. In 2014, there was a new implementation plan that was adopted. And then rewinding the clock there a little bit, in 2007, there was a Trails Master Plan, as well as a Town of Canandaigua Parks and Rec Master Plan. Why do I say that? Every one of these documents talk about exploring the need for public access to Canandaigua Lake. This wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't one document and said it and another one didn't. Every single one of them consistently came back and said explore. Town of Canandaigua, we've been working with a variety of professional firms in recent years to look at land use planning in the town of Canandaigua. You can see the agriculture enhancement plan from 2016 all the way to a natural resource inventory that was just done in 2020. In that 2003 comprehensive plan, one of the findings specifically, number 26 there, should the town develop public lakefront access? 61% of the respondents said yes. Now, I know I've had people say to me, well, I never got a response way back then. Well, let's face it, first of all, that was 17, 18 years ago. I don't remember if I would have gotten a response that long ago or not, but specifically Saratoga Associates is a professional land use firm that was hired back then to do that. They actually surveyed specifically 1,000 people, and there was a whole process where they determined that sampling that was done. 321 of those results were completed, and there's a whole variety of different things in the documents on our website associated with that. The 2011 update specifically, again, called out the need to identify opportunities to increase the amount of publicly accessible waterfront areas. The 2007 plan again said lake access. Their desire in the town should continually look for opportunities to acquire or secure easement, permit, or other long or short term, less than fee simple means of providing public access to the lake. Opportunities may arise, et cetera, et cetera. You can read all the details on that. And just, excuse me, just a second. In 2019, we had identified a need to update the town's comprehensive plan. And this was an effort that was led internally by staff. And Eric Cooper, who's our town planner, who's actually going to be, this is actually your last meeting, Eric. You're leaving to become the City of Niagara Falls. Might as well announce it to a big group. He's going to become the City of Niagara Falls as planner. So if you ever have any interaction with Niagara Falls, you can call Eric Cooper now in Niagara Falls. But Eric helped lead this effort for us. And there was, again, we put out an online survey. What would you like to see the town look at and think about over the next 10 years? There were community meetings held. There are newsletters monthly, every single month. We put something in the newsletter in 2019. Hey, We want your input. We want your value, your input, and your insight relating to where you would like to see the town of Canandaigua going. If you haven't signed up for our monthly newsletter, please do so, because that's how we really push and share a lot of information with you. All kinds of information, community meetings were held, a whole variety of different places. You can see one of the meetings here was held in Cheshire. There were agriculture meetings. There was a whole schedule. The town was divided into different categories. Eric, you did a phenomenal job with really identifying and getting out there so that people could provide input. Not everybody did. That's what happens. But what we do have is the results of the survey of the information that was provided. 93% of the respondents said they're not seasonal, that they're permanent residents year-round. 83% identified themselves as homeowners, with 43% of the respondents saying that they had lived in the town of Canandaigua for more than 20 years. There were about 1,500 survey visits with about 500 responses. Obviously, we would love for that number to be higher. But again, we advertised in the newsletter. We pushed out that we're doing this process through the water bills, through Facebook, through social media. There was actually newspaper stories about it. So it's one of those situations where a lot of times people doesn't really think it affects them. And so they may not respond truthfully until we get a more hot button issue like what we're talking about here tonight. The survey also identified the respondents to the survey also identified themselves as 42% living on either Westlake Road or Middle Cheshire Road, with the breakdown for the rest of the community identified there. What is missing within the town? You can see 81.12% of the respondents said either lake access is greatly needed or somewhat needed, 81.12% of the respondents. And then there were a whole slew of comments that were provided. We gave the opportunity for people to put in anything they want. You could say great things, not so great things. We gave the opportunity for people to say whatever they want. And what people said is, it's difficult for people without a lake house or a boat to enjoy the waterfront. You can see access to Canandaigua Lake is minuscule. Lack of access to Canandaigua Lake is very unfortunate. I wish there was more boat launch access on the north end of the lake. Congestion is horrible throughout the summer. The next screen here, residents of the town can't use Kershaw Park without paying. The town beach is too far away. Do something like what Geneva did, public access to the lake. Canandaigua City and Town are a tourist destination. Again, talks about the need for access to the lake. Number 46, lake access has become a joke. Number 51, if there's a way to gain more access to the lake. There's a theme. We've heard it over and over and over. We need to at least explore it, which is what we're doing here tonight. So then we said, okay, hey, look, here's two opportunities. Town board started a public hearing back in December. We said, we want to hear from everybody. So we are pushing it out like we have in all the other times. Hey, the town's exploring this option. You can see the amount of people that we've reached through Facebook with 6,500 engagements. By the way, we anticipate that the 2020 census results will come back with the town of Canandaigua having a population somewhere in the 12 to 13,000 range. The town of Canandaigua is a growing community. We're issuing over 500 building permits per year, and it continues to grow. So I touched on why we're exploring. So now I want to start to get into some of the meat and the potatoes here for a few moments. So one of the things that we referenced, and it was referenced in a lot of the documents, in particular the Parks and Rec document, is the Canandaigua Lake Water Trail. Okay, so I want to spend just a quick second talking about this. This is a map from the Canandaigua Lake Water Trail system here. And these points are from the Canandaigua Lake Water Trail. There's a website, you can go to it, you can pull these maps up. And these points are different places where you can launch a kayak. So this is basically the city of Canandaigua, Kershaw. This is Atwater Park. This is the yacht club. There's a little green dot right here because there's a swimming area right here that's operated by the town of Canandaigua and owned by the town of Canandaigua. It's the Butler Road Schoolhouse Beach. That's what that little green dot is. That we do not provide currently kayak access point there. So that's why that's not highlighted. Down a little bit farther here, this is Ononda. This is the Ontario Beach Park over on Route 364. This is Deep Run. And then down here, you've got the Yates County in Yates County. So I've also identified on this map, because I know the question has come up, well, how many places along Canandaigua Lake can you go swimming? Currently, 5. on all of Canandaigua Lake. 5. You can go swimming at Kershaw. You can go swimming at Butler Road Beach. You can go swimming at Ononda, at Deep Run, and down at Vine Valley. That's it. Those are the 5 swim locations on all of Canandaigua Lake. So I've identified those also on this map because I just want to take a quick second here and show you this. What we're talking about here is, and I labeled these S, K, and F. S for swimming, K for like kayaks, non-motorized launches, and F for fishing. So obviously you can do all of that at Kershaw Park, between Kershaw and Atwater. Butler Road Schoolhouse, you can go swimming there. One of the proposed properties that we're talking about, I would envision possibly kayak and fishing. I'll touch on in just a second. Another parcel that we're looking at, Tishner Point, you could potentially do all 3. You can do all 3 at Ononda. Ontario Beach Park does not have swimming, but it has kayak and fishing launches, and Deep Run has all 3. So why is it that people tell us that there's a need for public access? So I did a little digging. There's 10.5 miles of shoreline on Canandaigua Lake. That's 55,440 feet. Of the 10.5 miles of shoreline of Canandaigua Lake, 0.39% is available for swimming in the town of Canandaigua. Public access is at Ononda and Schoolhouse. You could say 1.4%, but again, 0.39% is available for swimming. I just want to touch on here Ononda Park. Ononda Park, obviously, it's certainly one of the gems of the town's park system. We recently did a survey. There's a couple of things I want to share with you about this. We recently did a survey of Ononda Park. It's 6.8 acres. It has 715 linear feet of lake frontage, 105 of which are available for swimming. Why? Why would you have all that lake frontage and that so little swimming? Well, the reason for that is really this red circle. You can see the shelf in the lake here. And I hope that that comes through okay. But inside that red circle, there's a shelf in the lake. When you're actually looking at aerial photos like Google or some of the Encore or some of the technology, you can see the shelves in the lake. And there's some areas that are suitable for swimming and there's others that aren't. And so in that red circle, that extends 92 feet from the shoreline of basically swimming access at 105 feet wide for Ononda Park there. The other portion there, I want to just point out, total town-wide, because I knew the question would come up, the town has, or all of Canandaigua Lake, I'm sorry, has 35.9 miles of shoreline. There's in total, including Kershaw, Deep Run, Ononda, Schoolhouse, and Vine Valley, there's 1,010 feet available for swimming. Total Canandaigua Lake wide is 0.53% available for swimming on all of Canandaigua Lake. So opportunities came up to purchase 2 different parcels. So what I want to do is just take a moment here and I'm going to talk about each one individually, and then I'm going to talk to you about what the potential impacts would be from a financial perspective. So the first one to look at here is 3950 County Road 16. This is the image of and I see the Facebook. I keep looking away at the Facebook Live. It has just a little bit of a lag there. So I'm just letting that catch up just for a second here. But this is the parcel at 3950 County Road 16. This would, if the town were to purchase this would provide about 485 feet of shoreline. It's about 4 acres. It includes the Arnold Johnson homestead. It would also provide a possible future connection point from County Road 16 to Middle Cheshire Road, because it have a longer sliver that would go up and connect to property that's currently owned by the Lakewood Meadows Homeowners Association. It would provide an access point into the sidewalk system inside of Lakewood Meadows down in the future. This parcel that we're talking about is this one right here, again, on this map. And I also want to point out here, these are 1 mile increments. So from the Butler Road Schoolhouse to this parcel, if you were to go by the lake, that's 1 mile. From RSM down to Tishner Point, or 3950 County Road 16 down to the Tishner Point, is 1 mile. Over to Ontario, across the lake is 1 mile. From Tishner over to Deep Run's 1 mile. And then if you were going by lake down to Ononda by lake, it's plus or minus 3.5 miles. So you could say 3 miles, you could say 4 miles, either one would be correct. Here's some photos of the parcel that we're talking about. This parcel, you can see here the water. Obviously, everyone knows we live in a fantastic area. It is a rather steep slope right here adjacent to the guardrail. So how would we accommodate that? Well, there's an opportunity here really to get two uses out of this parcel. The area highlighted in green to be used as a park and recreation area. The area in red qualifies approved by the DEC for what we call source water protection or open space protection. So that would provide about 150 feet of lake access with, again, that future trail up across to Middle Cheshire, and then about 335 feet approximately of open space protection or source water protected area. Just an overview of what it currently looks like. This other map that I was showing you here, this is what shows on the property tax records. That parcel has been subdivided for future development. But the overhead look, that's kind of what a Google image would look like. I wanted to just show you here real quickly the view looking north along County Road 16 or Westlake Road. The area near the guardrail, that would be a protected area using that source water steep slope protection area with no development of any kind relative to the park in that area. Again, the view looking to the south, the lake access point there, you can see there on the screen where it says lake access area, existing path to water. There is an existing path that travels down right to the water. It is very much walkable. You could probably put some sort of a small vehicle to go down there, but it's existed for quite some time. The view looking to the east, and again at that pathway looking out towards the lake, and then the view looking to the west up the hill, and you can see the homestead that's up on the hill there that would be included in that purchase. There is an existing path. The vegetation has grown over the steps there, but there is an existing path from that homestead down to County Road 16. And you can see it a little bit more clearly in this photo here. Oops, sorry. This is the homestead. This is just a photo of the homestead, some photos of the homestead that was taken about just over a year ago up at the parcel. Obviously, it's fallen into disrepair. We have to take a good look at that parcel, but at that house, if we move forward, and possible future use, but that would be included with the acquisition. So how would we use this property? You see the house there on the map to the left. Well, there's the existing pathway that goes down to the lake. And the probably quickest and easiest way to provide public access to the lake is using what's called a floating dock system. And this floating dock system was recently installed in the town of Bethlehem. The town of Bethlehem spent $93,000 on this floating dock system. And they paid $27,000 and were able to get a DEC grant for $66,000. The approximate size of it is about 20 feet by 50 feet. It would provide fishing access, could potentially provide some kayak launching or coming in type of access. Just general, what I would say, access. Again, utilizing the existing pathway, you can see where the dock could easily be placed there while still providing open space protection for all of that area to the north in that steeper area. Where would people park, right? That's the big question. Westlake Road. People park along Westlake Road all the time, right? So we have some things that we have to talk about relative to that. And this is, again, these are concepts. Nothing has been decided. I'm just showing concepts of some of the things that we're talking about so that everybody has some of the same information. We could easily put 20 parking places, no problem at all, no impact to that house whatsoever, right at the top of that existing pathway, about 100 feet by 50 feet. These parking places, by the way, what I did is I took the overview of the Butler Road Schoolhouse parking lot and I cut it and I pasted it. So if you want to see what this parking lot looks like, this is exactly the parking lot at Butler Road Schoolhouse Park. We would also need to talk about no parking. I know that that's been a question that's come up a couple of times right there in that area to make sure that people aren't parking on the side of the road. But basically, there's plenty of opportunity there to put approximately 20 parking places. Now, how does that compare? Ononda Lakeside has 42 parking places. So it's about half of the parking that's available currently at Ononda. The other thing I want to mention here, I talked about this important point earlier with Ononda. Ononda has that 92 feet from the shoreline until the lake drops off, that shelf. What's interesting and unique about this parcel, you can see it's 223 feet from the edge of the shoreline to the edge of that shelf before the water drops off. So while swimming access is not currently planned, it is something that I think would need to be looked at and discussed for this parcel in the future. Perhaps off the floating dock instead of off of the the shoreline. But again, it's something that would need to be looked at further. Okay, so let's talk money for this particular parcel. Acquisition cost. Again, no sale price for either parcel has been determined. The way we do this is we say, okay, we're going to do 2 appraisals. Seller pays for one, buyer pays for one. The average of the 2 appraisals determines the sales price. We believe the average of the parcel, because of the topography, because of a whole series of factors, we believe that these appraisals are going to come back somewhere in this ballpark of 1.25 to 1.5. I personally think it's going to be 1.3. So that's the number that I use just for this point for discussion purposes. We'll have closing costs. We don't have any transfer tax because we're a municipality. There's some appraisal costs. There's some miscellaneous costs. You're probably talking about, for the acquisition side of the house, 1.3 million, just over 1.3 million to acquire this. So how do we acquire that at 1.3 million? Well, there's a $355,000 grant that's already been approved by the DEC. They've already said that that portion for open space source water protection, that qualifies. That 355 is real money that's available to us through the Canandaigua Lake Watershed Council. We also have, because we're protecting, and not all of it would be parks, we have open space reserve money that is available to use. The open space reserve has just over $1.1 million currently in it. So taking $700,000 out to acquire this land still leaves a balance of in excess, almost $500,000. There's also a Parks and Rec fund. It's available to help with the acquisition for the parks component. And then obviously the appraisal would be paid that we've already ordered in the 2020 budget, and there was money set aside. So all that to say, no taxes. New taxes for acquisition, 0. We don't need to increase taxes to cover the acquisition of this parcel. No bonding is needed. Build out costs. Let's touch on that briefly. That floating dock I mentioned, pathway to the lake, some benches, some parking lot at $5 a square foot, that works out to about $50,000. You're realistically talking about build out cost for a simple public access point at that parcel, approximately $150,000. Future build out, multiple years down the road, is where we'd look at the trail and all the variety of different things. But you're talking about immediate public access within 2 years, $150,000 build out costs. So where would the $150,000 come from to build it out? Well, sources of revenue. We do have some more DEC grant money that's available, as well as Canandaigua Lake Watershed grant money that's available. There is some Parks Fund money available. There's a variety of different grants, but you're talking about $150,000. Oh, by the way, if none of that works, the 21 budget already has $250,000 in it for lake access. So that would cover that. Or, oh, by the way, I already told you I need $251,000 to acquire the land from the Parks and Rec Fund. That would still leave a balance of $400,000 available in that. So that could also be used. So there's a variety of different ways to acquire the park at the 3950 County Road 16 and do the basic build out with no new taxes, no impact to the tax rate. Operational costs, you're basically just talking about grass cutting, tree trimming, etc., about $10,000 per year. Next steps for this particular project, I'm just going to touch on this briefly. The town needs to decide whether or not we're going to move forward with that. And then we would need to take action whether or not to exercise an option. The town has not purchased this property. This property, we have what's called an option to purchase that we have put into place that gives the town as long as 2 years to acquire the property if they choose to do it. And if not, that's okay also. Time frame, what you're talking about, realistically, by the time we go through our process and everything that we need to do and do the improvements that would need to be done, you're realistically talking probably about summer of 2022 to really open that up as a town park. Okay, so that's that one. Acquisition cost, again, just to review, 1.3 million build out. About 150,000 operational costs, no taxes. The town tax rate remains that same at $1.03 that I explained to you earlier. No bonding needed. Okay, Let me touch base real quickly here on the Tishner Point parcel. Obviously, it's a gorgeous parcel. It's just absolutely beautiful. Incredible views. It has a historic component. The Ana Linda is pictured on the sign here at Tishner Point, the Ana Linda Steamboat. It almost feels like a park when you walk the property. The family has done a phenomenal job in just keeping it in a very natural setting. Again, some more photos here of the parcel and what it looks like at the point there at Tishner Point. The parcel has relatively remained unchanged. Here's an aerial image from both 2006 and an image from 2014. And I looked at it pretty closely. The only difference I saw was the shed in that 8-year period. So the family purchased this property in 1971, and they really have left it relatively unchanged since that. The parcel is also relatively flat. From the highest point up by the road, it's the contours are 700 feet. At the lowest point down at the shoreline is 690. So it's about 10 feet. It's a relatively flat parcel. The parcel, again, just for a point of reference, the Tishner Point parcel here is this one, just north of Onondaga. There is a strong historical component to this parcel. We know that there is a history. Our history team actually did some videos, Westlake Legacy Project, including videos associated with this particular parcel, Tishner Point. We've also, there was a science camp there. Actually, Ray Henry, our former town historian, wrote a book about this parcel. It's a very interesting read in the science camp that was at this parcel. So some fascinating stuff there. We also, and actually I thought I had put something in there about that. So thank you, Ray, for writing that book. It's really fascinating, the Ana Linda coming into shore. Also know I've had conversation with the Seneca Iroquois and Seneca Iroquois Museum, and they believe that the parcel was once a fishing village for the Seneca Nation, and there are some artifacts, some sinkers that have actually been found right at that parcel over the years. This purchase would include 2 cabins, boathouse, garage, shed. This is a view from 2010 of what it looked like at that time. It looks relatively the same now. Some improvements have been made to the boathouse, but it looks relatively very similar. It's about a 4-acre parcel. You can see an overview here. This is the purchase of the Tishner Point parcel. Again, the road view from looking to the north. This is the same white car that we were looking at. I apologize if it's anybody that's on the call here tonight. And then again, looking to the south. Looking to the south, you see farther up the road, there is an incline on the road. Looking to the west, largely shielded shrubs. And then the view to the east would be the drive, the Tishner Point Drive that goes down. And that is a private drive, Tishner Point Drive that goes down. Again, this is 4 acres. For comparison, Onondaga Park is 6.8 acres. I talked earlier about that drop off, that swimming access point at Onondaga is 92 feet before it drops off. This has a remarkable 338 feet when you measure it out to the end of the shelf here before that drop off. So very, very unique cove here. That has a large shelf area that would make it very suitable for swimming. I want to talk about this survey here for a moment. So in 2020, a survey was done on this parcel, and I know I've had some questions about this because there's a difference between the survey and what the county records have. The county records measure, when they look at lakefront property, they measure tie line to tie line. Tie line to tie line is 309 feet. The survey actually identifies, from a professional licensed survey, identifies the total lake frontage as 398.06. What's the difference? The difference is this point. When you're measuring tie line to tie line, you see that's the 309 feet. The rest of that comes in on this point. This is that point. So you can see there's clearly lake that's coming up to that point. And so the surveyor has identified the total of 398.06 as the entirety of the lake frontage. By the way, Onondaga Park on that earlier slide, I'm not going to go back to it, but Onondaga Park also has a similar point like that. Tie line to tie line, which is why I showed you earlier, tie line to tie line is 500 feet and change, total lake frontage by the surveyor was identified as 700 feet. Use as a town park. Essentially, to get it started in a basic sense, not much really has to be done. You can see the majestic trees, it's level landscape. It would be a great picnic spot, walking around, enjoy the air, water, just to take a deep breath. Some modifications, future usage, you could certainly have swimming area, you could have dock, you could have fishing access, non-motorized. One of the ideas that we floated around is this concept of taking the current cabin, the main cabin, and basically just using it as a museum, to share the history of the cottages along the lake and what the steamboats, including the Anna Linda, that used to come there, telling the story of the cottage era, the steamboat era, as well as the specifics relative to the Seneca Iroquois Nation. We would need to construct restrooms, and that would likely take place in the second cabin that is there on the property. Also concepts, again, these are all concepts. We would probably need to remove the tennis court and relocate the private road that's there. We would need to construct some parking, swimming, fishing, kayak access points. Parking, let's talk about parking real quick. Again, using that same exact parking lot I showed you earlier, again, there's plenty of room here for 20 parking places with no problem at all. Again, that 100 by 50 area, and this is that same parking area, again, just dropped right here and what it would look like there. Obviously, these are very rudimentary. We need to do engineering, we need to do stormwater management, a whole variety of different things. So let's talk about some costs, just touching on briefly here. Acquisition cost, if we were to move forward, again, we don't know what the sale price would be today. I cannot honestly tell you, we do not have the appraisals back yet, but it would be, again, the average of the two appraisals. Hypothetically, just to use a number, just to talk numbers here, let's say it is $6 million. Again, no transfer tax. We would have some closing costs, appraisals, bonding, miscellaneous. You're talking in the neighborhood of $6.1 million to acquire this. Not for a moment going to tell you this will not impact the tax rate, because it will. If we move forward with this, your taxes would have to go up. I'm going to be 100% very clear about that. The Parks and Rec Fund could be used for a portion of it, but what I've done for the rest of this illustration is showing you if we borrowed $6 million, what that would look like, so that we could talk about some numbers. Build out cost. You'd need some sort of a floating dock. Some of the cabins need roofs, some restrooms, lights. And again, this is basic. This is very basic to get it operational. You know, building a gravel parking lot, for instance, for the 20 cars in the first year, and then coming back and paving it the second year. We do things like that on a regular basis. Relocation of the driveways, some fence, some buffering, a variety of other things. Yes, there's some grant money and there's a variety of things, but again, you're talking in that neighborhood of $160,000 on a build out, with the rest of it having to phase in over multiple years. So if, going back to the Parks Fund, just as a hypothetical here, if we use that 250 for the RSM acquisition, and we use 143 for the Tishner Point acquisition, you still have 256,000. Not that we want to use it all, but there is money available there. There's 161 for the basic process to just get it open in a real basic sense as a town park. And then there is some money in the 21 budget. Operational cost, for comparison, Ononda. Remember, Ononda is 6 acres. This is 4 acres. So we spend, from an operational standpoint, about $82,000 a year at Ononda to operate Ononda. I anticipate about $45,000 a year to operate this park. Yes, there's going to be costs that go up and come down depending on the year and depending on what has to be done. But again, just so that we could talk about numbers, lifeguards at that facility, utilities, building maintenance, etc. And the building maintenance cost would be a little higher the first few years for sure. $45,000 again. Municipal bonding. I told you, there's no way for us to absorb that $6 million. If we were to move forward with this, we would have to finance that. We'd have to bond $6 million. Here's your current bond rates as of yesterday when I started putting the finishing details on this presentation. 2%, 30 years at 2%. You can see last week and today the numbers there for a AA bond. You're talking about 30 years, 1.5516. I estimated 2%. just for sake of what that would be. 30 years at 2%, the annual debt service payment would be $266,000 per year is what we would need to pay. There's the schedule, there's the amortization schedule, $266,000 per year. So let's plug some numbers in here. 6.1 million acquisition, 160 in build out, operational, that debt service payment, new taxes. Yes. How would the town tax rate be impacted? Let's get into it. What's the impact? So I told you earlier, the town budget, $11.6 million. And I just told you we would have to increase taxes. So the town general fund for 21 was 4.4 and the highway was 3.4. So that's 7.9. Now there was about 150,000 in one-time cost in the 21 budget. It should say 21, not 20. Total, if we were to take that 4.6 million, add in all those costs I just talked about, you're talking about $8.1 million in total expenses between the general fund and the highway fund. All right, so let's get into some detail. Expenses. Here's our revenue. There's a gap of 1.5 million. Remember then we did that calculation earlier and we figured out, okay, what's the missing number to make the budget balanced? Well, that missing number is $1.5 million. So how do we figure out what the tax rate is going to be? Well, we do it the same way we did it earlier. We take the March 20 taxable value. That was the last full taxable value now. On average, we issue, as I said, 500 plus building permits every single year. And on average, ever since 2014, the town's taxable value has gone up about 1% annually. So if I take that 1% and add that number to that, and then reduce it by the current assessed value for the 3950 County Road 16 parcel and the Tishner Point parcel, the new taxable value would be $1.4 billion. I take that missing amount, divide it by that, new town tax rate is $1.15. Taxes would go up. That would be for the 2022 budget. I just want to be 100% clear with that. And the budget would likely not be tax cap compliant. So again, comparison. This parcel, tax rate's not impacted. This parcel, tax rate would definitely be impacted. $1.15. Okay. What does that actually mean? What is $1.15? Here's the chart I showed you earlier. Here's the new one. But what I want to do is, because that's hard to look at it like that way, so I broke it down side by side. On that $300,000 house, the tax rate would go from $310 to $348. That's a $38 increase annually, $3 per month, for the average $300,000 house in the town of Canandaigua. The $1.2 million house will go from $1,200 to $1,300, almost $1,400. That's an annual increase of $151. $2.8 million home, again, goes from $2,800 to $3,200. Annual increase, $351, $20 a month. In a $4.8 million home, the same exact home, $603 increase or $50 a month. Again, here's the overview, the comparison, what's needed. We did get a couple of questions. I just want to touch on it just very, very briefly. I'm going to turn things back to you here in just a second, Kathy. Is there really a demand for another park on Westlake Road? Again, we're hearing public comments. That's the whole purpose of this, is to talk about, hey, here's some ideas, here's some concepts, this is what it would be, and we want to hear from you. What is the property worth? The Tishner Point specifically, I'm not a certified appraiser. I can't tell that. We've got to wait till we get the certified appraisals. I touched on the lake frontage and why there's a difference with the county. I touched on the taxpayer, what the cost would be to the taxpayers, that tax rate of $1.15. The town is not distressed. The town is not overriding the tax cap. We're actually doing the opposite. We're rescinding the override. Is this legal? I don't think I touched on that earlier. Permitted uses in the residential lake district includes public parks. That's actually defined right in town code. And is there a more affordable way to support public access? Maybe there's a question talks about Pinnacle. Pinnacle is private property in the city of Canandaigua. We can always look at anything. So next steps. Here we are. We had a public hearing last month. We're having a public hearing now. I've requested the public hearing be continued after comments are heard tonight to January 29th, and I would anticipate that would likely continue into February and maybe even longer. We need appraisal information. I would anticipate by the end of January, we would hopefully have appraisal information for both parcels. We still would need to do seeker, February, March timeframe. We still would need to do bonding if we move forward with the Tishner Point parcel. And then closing, you're probably talking May, June for Tishner Point. You're talking probably summer, fall for the other parcel. So, and with that, Kathy, I am going to turn it back over to you. Hopefully that helps. And obviously we have a lot more details to work out, but this point of this presentation is to talk about some of the overviews and some of the concepts, some of of the ideas. So we can talk a little bit more about some of those. So Kathy, I think you're still, okay, you got it.
I
All
just unmuted myself. Thank you very much, Deb. So what we intend to do is to move to the public hearing on these properties and everyone given opportunity to speak. As I stated, you will have 3 minutes to speak. If you could use the raise your hand function. Just warning you, when you get close to your 3 minutes, I will nudge you in some fashion. I don't like to be the bad guy, but we want to hear from everyone in one form or another. So if we don't hear from you this way, you can send written submissions, emails, phone calls, carrier pigeon, whatever you want. We want to hear from you. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Doug, for that presentation. Some questions did come up. If you want to take a look at them, Doug, while we're moving along. So Mr. Burkholder, the raise your hand option is under, you go down to the bottom to reactions, click on that, and you'll see a function that says raise hand. We'll try to keep an eye out for it as well. Okay. All right, now we will move on to a continued public hearing. So there are two public hearings. One pertains to 3950 County Road 16. And again, I do apologize, my lighting is horrible. And then we have a new public hearing on the 4351. This first public hearing pertains to 3950 County Road 16. That's what Doug referred to as the RSM property. Can I have a motion to open that public hearing?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Any discussion on opening the public hearing? All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the public hearing is now open. Before we proceed, I want everyone to like to introduce everyone to our town board that will be hearing this hearing. We have Gary Davis with us, Town Councilwoman Linda Dworzak, Town Councilman Jared Simpson, Town Councilman Terry Finelli, and my name is Kathy Menakotz. I'm the town supervisor. For those of you who don't know us, very nice to meet you all. The format that this will take is you will be permitted to give a statement. You will be speaking to the town board members. Please don't speak amongst yourselves. If you're not speaking, please remain muted. We'd like this to remain as smooth as possible and keep it moving along so that we can hear from as many people as possible. So with that, I'd like to start taking questions, and I might have to rely on Sarah or someone to let me know who would like to speak.
Kathy, I do see a couple of comments. People do not see the raise hand option. I believe if you double click on the button that says participants or list of participants, if you double click on that, there should be an option to raise your hand. And now I see some hands going up.
Okay. On mine, there's a bottom, it says reactions. You click on that and it says raise hand. I don't know if you we'll find you one way or another. If you want to do a chat and you just say, I'd like to be heard, we'll keep an eye on that as well. Okay, if that works.
Kathy, can you remind people, since we have about 6 screens full of people, to give their name as well when they give their comment? I know your name's on your screens, but it would be a little easier that way.
Yeah, it'd be easier. So this is being recorded. So if you give your name, that would be helpful. If it'll be available on YouTube for you to also look at. So if any of this goes by too quickly, you can refer to that. So the first person that's coming up in my screen right here is Mr. McGavern. If you'd like to be heard, I'm going to give you 3 minutes and try not to cut you off, but are you ready?
I can be ready, but I want to talk to the other, the other proposal. So I wait.
Sure. Oh, sure. That's fine. We'll call you on that proposal.
Thank you.
Lauren.
I'm interested in also talking about the Tishner Point proposal.
Okay. David Borkholder.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. That was really informative. The town assessed percentage of respondents via your surveys that use existing waterfront parks. Utilization of waterfront parks so that we know if we are close to capacity at the access points that we have.
I'm sorry, you got cut off partway through your question. So for me anyway. I
Yeah,
heard about
so
utilization, but specifically what is it that you wanted to know about utilization?
right, has the town assessed utilization of our existing waterfront parks that offer the same services as these proposed new parks? Do we know how close we are to capacity at those parks so that we know that there is indeed a need for additional parks that offer those services?
So I can tell you there's been no specific utilization study. And some of this we may save. I'll try to answer your question in sort of the 3 minutes. From my perspective, it's not a question of whether our other parks are at capacity. For me personally, again, I can't stress this enough. No one has made up their minds. I'm just telling you what my personal interest is in it, in terms of valuable parkland and something that might not ever be available again. So in terms of that, I don't think there's any measure that can say this property needs to be explored because our other ones are at capacity. It has its own value, separate and apart from utilization of other items. To me, the question is whether it's enough, people are willing, comfortable to spend the extra money as far as Tishner Point, and also the other considerations that we'll hear from people that their properties border that. So there's the considerations of traffic, how it impacts other properties. But then again, there's the considerations of historical value, preservation of land, environmental impacts, quality of life impacts. So from my perspective, it's not a question of whether it's needed in terms of there's not room at the other parks. That's my personal.
I have one other comment if I can.
Sure.
Obviously have not reviewed all the survey results, but I did quickly review what was presented here. And I actually took away a very different message than just we need more access. I actually think it's the type of access. So survey answer 3, swimming is highly restrictive. And in survey 5, open Kershaw Park. 26, need more boat launches. Survey 32, we shouldn't have fees for access. So, and I know from personal experience, we had ladies from Corpus Christi that asked if they could swim at our waterfront. And we said, sure, which they did all summer long. And we asked, why don't you go to Butler or Ononda? And the answer was because we can't swim, right? It's a little tiny area and they wanted to actually swim down along the lakefront. So I would encourage the board to really look at what access is required. What is it that the community really wants? What is different today than what we used to have in this community? And I expect that you'll find that it is the level of restriction that we have on use of the lake at those access points versus needing additional access points. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, but your 3 minutes is up and
Madam Supervisor, can I interrupt for just a minute and pick on Mr. Borkholder a little bit, who gave us a great example of a question and a great public comment. And remind the folks on here as well as the staff that this is a public hearing, not a question and answer session. And there isn't time nor ability to answer all the questions. So the board is here to listen to public opinion and public comment, but cannot answer every question.
My apologies.
No, I appreciate it, and that I would say that too, but I thought that Mr. Burkholder was raising a point that, we could, by discussing it, bring it out. But from here on, I'll try to just keep it to, so we move it along. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me individually. So if anyone else has a similar situation, if you want to phrase it in terms of your comment, that would be most helpful to us. So thank you, Chris, and thank you, Mr. Burkholder. Next up on my screen is someone who's indicated as Sue Turner.
Hello.
Hello, could you state your name for us, please?
My name is Keith Turner.
Hi, Keith. Now,
And
you're going to have three minutes to give a comment, but as our town attorney, Chris Nadler, pointed out, we're going to try to keep our question and answer to a minimum.
this should be rather quick. I see purchasing these parcels as an investment in the future. If we have attractions on the lake that future residents want to use, and that it has an effort on their an effect on their decision to purchase property in the town of Canandaigua, then we're better off in the long run. So my vote is, I think Tishner Point to me is a great opportunity, but I would really like to see both. So, and that's all that I have to say. And thank you. And thank you very much, Doug. That was a great presentation.
Thank you very much. Sue Spall. You're muted, though.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. If you could please state your name for us.
Ted Spall with Sue Spall. First of all, we're privileged to be taxpayers and property owners for 36 years in the town. We're fortunate to be able to afford it. And when the land came available, we bought it and developed it. So I'm not trying to question denying town residents access to these points. I'm a little puzzled though by Doug's comments about the safety and swimming frontages and talking about going out 92 feet, 350 feet, why that makes a difference. I'm 6'3". Once the water's over my head, what is the difference? And I wonder too, that Kershaw, I understand, is not open for swimming, or very little is open for swimming. That's a vast area of frontage with a sandy bottom, shallow water, very safe. And I don't understand why that isn't more utilized in conjunction with it. Yes. Now I drive down Westlake Road all the time. And German Brothers does a great operation. They're terrific business people, but they have boats and trailers on both sides of the road. The weekends, it's very, very busy. It's congested. I witnessed very close calls down there many times. I like to get an answer long-term here. How does pedestrian cross the road from the opposite side where the parking's going to be down to this steep slope? And why is a 50-foot floating dock that valuable for swimming? Are you going to have lifeguards? What's the cost of lifeguards? Have you factored in the insurance costs for liability? If somebody drowns down there, you're going to have a tremendous liability, or somebody's hit crossing the road, you're going to have another liability. Where are the restrooms shown? Where are 20 people parking in the parking lots going to use facilities for the restrooms? They're going to go knock on the door of German Brothers? It absolutely makes no sense for this particular parcel.
What do people do on the dock?
Yeah. What are people going to do on the dock? I mean, are they going to stand there and look at the lake? Can they swim off the dock? Are they going to be supervised when they swim off the dock? It's a very small parcel. It's got limited access. What's the balance of the land when Mancini up there? What's he going to do with that property? At one point, he had an offer with German Brothers to develop the whole thing. Is he going to continue owning that property, or does the town want to acquire that long term? As a developer, builder, I'd like to know the answer to those questions. So I think there's a question of safety, sight distance along that road, steep slopes, people negotiating it, and liability and lifeguards and a lot of expenses we haven't even thought about.
15 seconds, thank you.
Okay. Oh, Tishner Point will come up later, right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Dennis, would you like to be heard on this property?
Can you hear me now?
I can, Dennis.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Doug, great job in your presentation. Thank you for all the facts. I've been to both parcels. The Johnson parcel, I was at a number of times. As a matter of fact, Gray Radak and I painted the house.
The house is a neat house. I don't know what kind of shape it is now. It's a great hiking area. We did do a trails master plan a number of years ago, looking for more areas to hike. Also, this is an area in which there will be a connection to Westlake Road and Middle Cheshire Road. Teschner Point is a gem. I don't want to use the word never, but this is great opportunity. I'm not sure when another opportunity will ever come up to purchase property in the town of Canandaigua like these two. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I have someone who identified as Mink iPad. If you could identify yourself.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I believe is your iPad Mink iPad?
Are you listening? This is Ling On. Can you hear me?
I can. Do you want to be heard on the RSM property or the Tishner Point?
I live in Tishner Point.
All right, so that hearing will be coming up if you want to save your comments for that.
Oh, okay.
All right. So I will go to person identified as Diane Straight.
Yeah, hello, this is Andrew and Diane Straight. So we own the property directly to the south of the RSM property. So I think from our perspective, probably what concerns us the most would just be the impact from not only from an environmental impact perspective, but also from crowds, traffic, parking, excess parking, the potential need for restrooms, et cetera, et cetera. Hours of operation. I don't know. I'm familiar with the Butler Street property, but I'm curious if people are there long before the stated or long after the stated closing time, et cetera. I just worry, and perhaps you haven't experienced this at the Butler Road property, but I'm just worried that we'd have much larger crowds than we're anticipating at that parcel.
Okay, thank you. Peter McKellar.
So yeah, my comments are that not often that properties like this become available. Not being in Canandaigua more than 8 years now, I can imagine that the properties, especially since you've given 39.5 miles of lake frontage and less than 0.5% or whatever is available for swimming and that type of stuff. I know being a town resident trying to get down to use Kershaw has been very hard. We've gone down to Onondaga quite a few times. It's good. I mean, and it's a haul though. It's far to get down there. So having things available closer, fishing, kayaking. If we get to swim, great. But those type of things are not available that easily if you don't have a lake house. And so things like this just don't come along often. Great opportunity. You need to jump on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKellar. Lauren, I think you said you wanted to speak on Tishner Point, correct?
That's correct.
All right, I don't see any other hands on this property.
Scott Hill has one, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Scott Hill,
Yes, I'm here.
would you like to be heard on this hearing or the Tishner Point hearing?
I just have a general question for Doug. I'll go ahead and ask it. Has Doug factored in the potential loss of sales tax revenue in these future budgets?
I think we're not taking questions specifically on that right now.
I just need an answer for it. I'm just raising that question. That's fine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Doug, did you get that question to process? All right. You can always reach out to him if you have a question on that. We'll try to provide that answer. Anyone else on this particular property? All right. Our intention is still to continue this public hearing. Unless
I think we have a new request from Mr. and Mrs. Straight.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just one I won't pose this as a question, but I mean, just going back to my earlier question, I mean, is this the kind of situation where, in fact, there might be an impact study, both, from, covering the range of potential impacts? And don't misunderstand, I mean, it is a beautiful property. I recognize the need for public access, but it just seems to me as if it might be appropriate, just given the traffic in that area, adjacent to German Brothers, that an impact study, or a little bit more in-depth impact study than has been presented tonight, might be warranted.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else on this property? All right, this public hearing is going to be continued as well. So we will not close it at this time.
So Kathy, would you like a motion to continue the public hearing to next week?
Sure.
I'll
Yep.
make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 We, I have a concern of continuing it to the 29th at 8 a.m. Can we either change the time or change the date, or move it to the February board meeting?
Or we can continue it past that date as well, is my understanding. Some people might only be available in the morning that we're excluding now, so. I agree that the morning might not be good for everyone, but some people might not have been able to be here then. So would you still be okay with that?
I have a very limited morning time on the 29th.
You probably would be able to still watch the video afterward, maybe, to get the hearings.
I couldn't put in comments, but.
Excuse me, before we continue the meeting, I've got a couple people, it looks like, who have been raising their hands on the RSM issue.
I see that. I see Karen Parkhurst.
I
Karen, would you
think
like to be?
Mr. Stachak as well.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chris. Go ahead, Karen. Do you want to be heard? And Karen, I didn't forget, we're just going to keep going right now. Go ahead, Karen.
I'm Karen Parkhurst. I live on Laurel Lane in the town of Canandaigua. I've lived in the town of Canandaigua almost 50 years. And when I moved to Canandaigua, all my life, I have lived on lake property with easy access to a lake from the time I was a child. And that was a long, long time ago, folks. Anyway, when I moved to Canandaigua and saw the beauty of our lake, I made the decision that I would have access to that lake every single day that I live here. Well, that's kind of hard to do in the town of Canandaigua. There is always Ononda Park. You can drive in. I'm handicapped now, so I can't walk a great distance, but I at least ride down Westlake Road at least once a day, just so I can see the lake that I am proud to have in my backyard. I fully support the town trying to obtain both of these properties, because I think that anyone that lives in this area should have access to the lake in one way or another. Really, the only stable access that one has is the Canandaigua City Pier. You can go down there and sit and read a book, have a cup of coffee, just sit and enjoy our lake. That and the Ontario County Park on the east side of the lake is another wonderful place to sit and watch our lake and watch the movement on our lake. I see people wanting to fish. There's people all over the city pier. So on the RSM property with a floating dock, I think fishing would be a wonderful opportunity there. And it would even be safe for children to do. So, I applaud you for looking at this. In my 50 years here and almost 15, 20 years paying attention to the town and what it's doing, I haven't seen something like this come up, and I support you in all you do to get access at these two places.
Thank you, Ms. Parkhurst. Mr. Stachak.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ryan Stachak. I live at 6285 Ketchum Road in Canandaigua. Thanks, Doug, and thanks, Town Board, for this. This is almost like a dream come true, right? Like we're finally talking about this stuff in 2021, which is great. I support more public access, obviously, to the lake. The one issue I find here, and I'd like the town to just kind of consider this, is it seems like we're reacting instead of being proactive, and this is very reactive. And I want to make sure that we take our time on that. I'm super supportive. And if we could be more proactive by looking at the recommendations in the open space plans about establishing maybe a nonprofit organization to accept donations to create more revenue, and a lot of those other recommendations that have come out over the years, I think that would be wise to be more proactive and establish a real open space program and parks program. So that's my one issue with this. Another issue I have is the RSM development that's attached to this parcel. With the parcels on there, I think that we'd like to consider that. Like, what would have to happen with that approved subdivision of all those lots? Like, how is that going to impact the quality of this site in comparison to other sites? And then those are my main issues. And then also, I think that this really warrants a very serious discussion between the town board members about using so much open space monies for this parcel. I'm not saying it doesn't apply, but I think it's really using a lot of that funding for open space. And there could be a heated debate on how much open space is really being preserved with this parcel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Stachuk. Okay, I don't see anyone else on the chat, and I don't see any other raised hand. Mr. Lupton, do you want to be heard?
Yes, I do.
This
Can you
is
hear
on
me?
the RSM property, not the
Yeah,
Tishner.
I have a general comment for both.
Okay.
So we currently actually live in both the city and the town. The line goes through our property. And so we're adjacent to Atwater Park. And I just wanted to share some experiences that we've had. You know, Atwater is a very large open space with probably 400 feet of lake frontage. It's got a walking path down to the water, and there's not supposed to be any swimming. And I think the park is open at sunrise and closes at sunset. And, you know, we've taken numerous pictures and had to call both the county, the sheriff's department, as well as the city police many, many times to say, you've got people swimming out to Squaw Island. I think, 3 years ago, someone drowned there. You got fires burning down there with literally there'll be 20, 30, 40 people down there. So, I would just suggest that, I think this plan certainly has merits. It's certainly worth exploring, but I really think you have to take into context, who is going to actually manage this and be there day in and day out and look after it. Because I can tell you at Atwater Park, there's nobody looking after it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's it for this parcel. Anyone else? I see Jeff Twombly, but I think you want to talk on Tishner Point. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Anyone else? All right. So we had a motion and a second. Mr. Simpson requested that we move it to another day. My suggestion is that we leave it for now for the next date, which is in morning.
We won't be making a decision at that point. So
Correct.
we won't be making a decision, so that's fine. I can be there as much as I can, and I don't see that as an issue right now.
Okay. So all in favor of adjourning the hearing, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I should say continuing the hearing. Aye. All right. Now we will move on to a new public hearing. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing on the exploration of a proposed purchase of 4351 Tishner Point Drive?
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I now declare the public hearing open. We'll use the same procedure. Please let me know if I miss anybody. Use the chat. You'll have 3 minutes, and it's for comment. And if you have any questions after that, you can reach out to us, and we will try in this presentation or others to address all your questions. So with that in mind, we will get started. Mr. McGavern.
Thank you very much. I have
Yes.
two concerns. One is County Road 16 or Westlake Road. between Parish Street and Foster Road, it is very, very busy with recreational use, boats. When you drive through the boat yard, 35 miles an hour is way too fast. And why we haven't killed people there so far, I don't know. But there was a study on Westlake Road. They had a hearing during a snowstorm that no one showed up for. Haven't heard anything about it, but Westlake Road needs to be made one way or one lane or something because it's way overused. My second concern is the prices that you're willing to pay. You know, the full value on the Tichenor Point assessment is $1.3 million, and you're starting right out at $6 million. I think it's irresponsible with our money. Granted, we have a low tax rate, but we won't for long. So my concerns are two, that the road is way too busy now and needs some very serious changes in how we use it or how we restrict it. And the second thing is that you're just offering way too much money. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Twombly, I'll take you next.
Okay, thank you,
And
Kathy.
your screen says Lori for those who are trying to figure out who I'm talking to.
Yeah, this is Jeff Twombly and my wife Lori. We are neighbors just to the north of the parcel on Tichenor Point. The kind of rough diagram that Doug presented about the property. You notice there's a little jag by those tennis courts and a house right across from the tennis courts. Well, that house is ours. So this park is basically going to circle us on two sides of our land property. So we're pretty much within the park. So we're obviously concerned about security. We're concerned about the things that I think Alan Lupton talked a little bit about how to really prevent a park that's off the main road from not being occupied after hours, things like that. We're definitely concerned about. Also, I just wanted to make the board aware of some restrictions on the property. All of us landowners on Tichenor Point right now, that's a private neighborhood, a residential neighborhood, and there's 4 houses in that neighborhood, and we all have signed land restrictions within our deeds, which restrict the use of the property inside of that driveway, as well as rightage uses for the drive itself. So in essence, the town is contemplating buying a piece of property for $6 million when about 20 to 25% of it has some relatively severe usage restrictions on it. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that and make sure that they take that into consideration in any plan developments that they have. Also, I'm obviously concerned about the impact on the property value of my property. Coincidentally, my parents live on a small lake in Vermont, and their town actually provides a 15% reduction in their tax assessment automatically because they have recognized that living next to a park reduces the value of your property. You can talk all you want about whether it's good or bad, but there's many instances where towns have officially recognized that living next to a park reduces your property value. So we're obviously concerned about that. So I guess in conclusion, I don't get me wrong, I'm all for public access to the lake. I'm just questioning, number one, whether this property on Tichenor Point really makes economical sense. It's a tremendous amount of money. It's a fairly large impact on the tax base at a time when we would all like to see the board trying to reduce our taxes. I get it might not be a marginal new tax.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Twombly.
Okay, so it's in conclusion, I guess I would like to say that we just request that the board do their due diligence, make sure that we have all of the proper information together so that we could, and we request that the board go to public vote in November on a referendum. Since we're spending this much money, we'd like to know if the average taxpayer really wants to spend $35 or $40 a year on the development of a parcel of land that they may or may not use. So we would suggest to the board, we request the board put this down for vote of the general public in November. And I'd like to know if the board's willing to do that.
All right, thank you. Next is Lauren.
Thank you, Kathy. First of all, I'd like to thank Doug. You did an outstanding job, terrific presentation. I too have lived in the town of Canandaigua for a very long time, in fact, 65 years. It is my pride and joy. I love everything about Canandaigua and could be the head cheerleader. I too am in favor of public access. However, I will say that I'm probably not in favor of the idea of a once in a lifetime opportunity. What I think really needs to be done is done a formal feasibility study. Yes, I understand that there was a Parks and Rec master plan completed in the form of a study 2 years ago, but a feasibility study on both of these properties is very, very different. It gets into the real need and also how often people would use it, what they would use it for. And within the confines of that study, I do believe that we'll find out other nuggets. I've been involved in many of these, and there are always these aha moments. Oh, really? Well, maybe we can make the project bigger and better if we had known X, Y, Z. From the members of the community. So I think it would be wise to slow down a tad, spend a little money on a feasibility study. And I am with the Twombly's in that I hope that there is a public referendum on this. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a person who's identified as Dan's iPhone. If you could unmute yourself and let us know who you are.
It's probably Dan O'Brien, and that's me. I am a longtime resident of the town of Canandaigua, currently reside off of Middle Cheshire Road, but I'm also an attorney, and I'm representing the folks on Titchener Point Drive. And I just wanted to confirm something that I believe Mr. Finch had said, which was that they intend to conduct a seeker review of both of these properties. And if that is the case, I just hope that the town would not commit to purchasing the properties until those reviews were completed. And that's really my only comment for the evening, because I do believe that seeker is mandated here. And I think it would help flesh out many of the issues that other people have expressed concern about. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. O'Brien. Next, we have someone identified as Laureen's iPhone. If you could unmute yourself and let us know who you are.
Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Thank you. I also have lived on the lake for the majority of my life, starting out at Crystal Beach as a young child and now as a 65-year-old woman living around 1/8 of a mile south of Campananda. And I remember when Campananda, that process was in place and many people were opposed to it, but my mother-in-law, who at the time owned my property, very strongly, and her family in fact had lived there since the middle 1800s, felt very strongly that there should be lake access. And she really strongly supported that park becoming a public park, or that camp becoming a public park. And I also I'm a swimmer. I go down to Kershaw Park and swim the buoys so that I can swim safely. And I think that public access is incredibly important. The problem I have with Titchener Point is that it's a very, very residential area. And you'd have to pull, I'm not sure how I see that would happen without really disturbing dramatically the neighbors. Whereas Campananda, it's really not an issue. It's right on Westlake Road. It's easy access. So I do have concerns about how it will change the dynamic of the lake and the neighborhoods of the lake, particularly in light of the fact that as I walk the street every single day, I do not see Ananda being overly used. And I don't see Kershaw Park being overly used as I swim there every day in the spring until the water warms up. So I really have concerns about whether this is really necessary for access. And those are my comments.
Thank you. Could you give us your name? I don't know if we caught it. I got the name Laureen, was it?
Burke, B-U-R-K-E.
Okay,
And I live
thank
at 5009 Westlake Road.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Patricia Brewer.
Hello, this is Ted Brewer, Patricia's husband. We live on Westlake Road as well. Doug, thanks for the excellent presentation and Happy New Year to you. A couple of points I wanted to raise, and I'm unclear on these subjects. One is the idea of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I think back just over the last year or so, and I see the Cook's property just north of the yacht club sold. That was 7.5 acres, almost 400 feet of frontage, and it sold for 4.85 million. That was 2 lots combined. That certainly was an option. Another thought that occurs to me is that if it's okay for the town to acquire any desirable residential property, which you're behaving as though that's the case, then I have to believe that looking into the past and into the future, there'll be a stream of unpredictable but available options. As a case in point, about a year ago, 4885 Westlake Road sold for 5 million. That was 454 feet of frontage with extraordinary buildings. The other point I wanted to raise, and again, I'm unclear on what to make of some of the comments. Kathy, you pointed to the idea of historic value. That all sounds wonderful, but I don't know what to make of it from an economic perspective. The numbers that have been floated by the town are way above what I've seen on the lake. And my assumption is that that derives from some sort of historic value, but I don't know how you quantify that. I don't know what expertise the town or anybody else has to quantify historic value. So I have a hard time making any sense of that. Thank you for hearing my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have David's iPad. If you could identify yourself and unmute yourself. Not in that order, obviously. Cannot hear you. You're still muted. There we now we should be able to hear you.
Good. I am David Felton and my wife Mary Maida. We live at the top of the hill, that goes down towards Tishner Point. And I am very concerned about the traffic because trucks and cars come roaring over the top of that hill, some of them as fast as 65, 70 miles an hour. My wife was in a terrible auto accident a few years ago because of the excess speeding and the busyness. And now we're thinking of having children in canoes and kayaks and bikers and hikers occupying the area even more. There are times when I drive down Westlake Road heading north where I count over 65 or 70 vehicles pulled up into the traffic lanes. You know, some of them lawnmowers, some of them delivery trucks, but Westlake Road is a nightmare of traffic. And in our residential neighborhood, this is just going to make it that much worse. And nobody seems to patrol it. Nobody seems to be interested in doing anything about it. And adding insult to injury with the traffic, I think is a very significant point. Somebody's going to get killed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have David Borkholder.
Great, thank you. I just have two quick comments. During the meeting, I looked up the assessed value for the Tishner Point property, and it is at 1.38 million. And as a resident, the discrepancy between that and a proposed value of the property at 5x that value is really disturbing. So I'd encourage the board to look at that and understand, are we under assessing properties by a significant amount, or are we proposing a value for the property that is significantly above what it's actually worth. The other point that I'd like to make relates to COVID. We have seen a devastating impact to our local economy, state and national economy, and you are proposing a purchase that would increase our tax rates by 11%. That is something that you really should consider. We have a lot of people that are hurting in the community. Many of us on this call are not in that category, but a lot of folks that this tax would be applied to are hurting and likely will be hurting for at least another year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. You have again our person identified as Sue Spall. You're still muted. If you could unmute yourself. There you go.
That's Paul again. My family's been in the development business since 1949. And we've had a lot of meetings like this in front of neighbors, NIMBYs, pro-development, mostly against development. And I'm just puzzled. This year on the lake, talking to some of the local real estate brokers, the property values and sales have never been hotter than they are right now. The Tishner Point property has been on the market for a fair number of months at $5.9 million. Have they received any offers? If not, why not? Also, from a development standpoint, if you look at 309 feet of frontage, my understanding of the town codes, you'd only be allowed to develop 2 lots. You need 125 feet of frontage or more. So you only have 2 lots on a parcel like this at almost $6 million. It doesn't make any sense. It's the highest and best use is being thrown aside here. If you look at the more swimming and everything else, I agree with, but you got 715 feet of frontage at Camp Ananda. I don't know how many feet of frontage you have down at Kershaw. Why don't you spend a couple of $1 million at both parks, increase the amount of floating docks, increase your lifeguard coverage, and have more accessibility, more parking for people, and be done with it. The question earlier was, well, Pinnacle's private property, you can't acquire that. Well, RSM is private property, and so is Tishner Point. The north end Pinnacle Point is a failure from an economic and development standpoint. I bet you they'd be happy to bail out and sell a nice parcel for parking and make more access down there. I think this is foolhardy what you're talking about. And one last point on development. You've already identified this as an historical site. It's a fishing village. As a developer, when we go in to develop a piece of property, you have to disclose that, and it really limits what you can develop on the site. I think you should be very careful with that. And I think that by itself could prohibit development on this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have Aaron Mills. Aaron Mills? Okay, good.
Can
thank
you hear me?
I can.
Hi, thank you very much. First, I want to say hi to a lot of my neighbors out there. So it's nice to see everybody's faces in COVID. Mr. Finch, thank you for your thorough presentation. I'd like to start with 2 concepts which I feel are most important tonight. First, I personally am not opposed to lake access and public parks. In fact, I am completely in favor. Second, I am not opposed whatsoever to the Kellogg's selling their property. My personal use of parks in the town of Canandaigua is extensive. I live near Ananda. I use Ananda 7 days a week. Ananda is completely underutilized. No matter how you dice it or slice it, everybody on this call that's been to Ananda, aside from a holiday weekend, knows how empty it is. In fact, I have young children. We get a resident pass. We go to Ananda. We swim at Ananda, even though we have lake access. We love it there. It is so unbelievably quiet there. However, it is underutilized, aging, it lacks infrastructure, and it lacks maintenance. Please invest some money in Ananda. It's a phenomenal asset. Canandaigua is a special place for many of us. It's the chosen spot. What Mr. Finch failed to do is focus on the impact of Tishner Point. we must understand what could happen to the homes, to the residential nature of that environment if a park is there. I had never driven down Tishner Point until I saw this proposal. I drove down Tishner Point and I probably trespassed on a lot of the neighbors' properties, so I apologize for that. I could not in good conscience figure out how to put a park there. If we look at a park, it seems like such a benign, easy use, but it is not. I'd like someone out there to tell me what type of development and use for 2, 3, even 4 homes, as Mr. Finch indicated to me on a private call, would have 20 cars parked there. A park can be the highest use. What is at Tishner right now is a beautiful, quiet residential setting. A park doesn't fit there. If we look at the surveys that were sent out, I would answer that we need more public access and more lake access. But we must ask ourselves, where should that be and at what cost? There is an executed purchase agreement for this property contingent upon appraisals and other things. The purchase price is between 5.3 and 7 million, I think, ish. That's way above market. If we're offering that type of price, there will be countless other opportunities on this lake. What I ask of you is 2 things. I know my time is running out, so I'll be quick. I ask each board member tonight, when you go home and you put your head on your pillow, I want you to ask yourselves how you would feel with a park next to you if you live in a residential area. The second thing I would ask of the Kellogg family is do what is best. I don't know the Kellogg's, but you have the right to sell this property. Put it back on the market, get the highest price for it. It's the highest and best use. I think this property, if it goes forward as a town park, will face extreme litigation that could delay the sale of this property for months, if not years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Nancy.
I'm glad I got to follow such an eloquent speech. Basically, I use the parks a lot also, and I used cabins this year. I used camping, and none of it was down at Camp Ananda because you weren't price competitive and half of the park was closed, meaning the upper part. But I actually did take a swim down at the Lake Ananda and park, and it was very pleasant. But again, like Mr. Mills said, it is underutilized. No one was there. It was a ghost town, and not just this year, but I think it's an underutilized park in general. And I know Ms. Chrisman takes care of the reservations, and maybe she could write up something about, you know, the usage of the park and how much money you bring in. But I think it needs to be better utilized. So before we go out and purchase more properties for parks, I think we need to invest in more and make it more upgraded a little bit, not only in the cabins, but also in the swimming area or something like that. But one very important thing to me is I am an athlete. I swim, I bicycle ride, and I walk on Westlake Road. And I'm very upset at the sheriff not taking care of drunk boaters that can affect me and the jet skis that go around so fast. So if you're having a park and you're allowing a park next to a marina, swimming is going to be very unsafe, because it's very unsafe for me with my neighbors. It's going to be very unsafe next to a marina. So that's number one. Number two, down at Lake Ananda, it was very quiet. It was a great swim, but you know, I don't know, some people, you might have to enlarge that area a little bit, but I'm not even sure how much it's really utilized. So someone really needs to look into that. As far as bicycling around the German Brothers, we use the German Brothers for a very long time, but if I'm bicycling and a car is going around one side of trailers, I could also get hit very easily on that road, especially at that point. So I want to reiterate safety, not only in the water, but also on the road. And as far as walking, it's not that safe either, but I know the road pretty well. So I encourage the town to better utilize, and I know that Atwater Park is kind of at the end, and I don't think that neighbor wants to hear me say this, But
You
the
have 10
question is,
10 seconds left.
could we put a dock at Atwater? And it'll make him mad, but is that a good swimming area? Because it might be bigger.
Okay,
And it might be towards North End.
Thank you, Ms. Gastel. We have Paul Messina.
Hello.
Hi.
My comment is strictly about the survey. It's not statistically significant. And if we're going to go ahead and try and come up with proposals and pay companies to do surveys for us, they should provide a statistically significant survey. So that's my comment for today.
Thank you, Mr. Messina. Stefan Petronsky.
Hi, thank you for holding this public forum. I really appreciate it. I am a Canandaigua resident. I'm transplanted here, and I really enjoy this as a place. I actually live adjacent to the proposed, one of the proposed properties, and I just really want to speak out in favor. I think that though I think it may have some impact on my property in terms of my privacy if people are walking up and down this trail, I just think that especially as I look at some of the comments are referring to like how COVID has impacted people, and I think that COVID has disproportionately impacted people with more significant financial struggles currently. And I think that having more public access is actually beneficial to people who are more impacted by COVID than the people who have enough money to afford lake access. And so I think that the more lake access that we have, the better. Even though, like I said, there may be some negative impact on my personal property, just in terms of privacy that I have, I still am very strongly in favor, and I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you.
Thank you for your input. Okay, just before I answer any more, just so you know, we are continuing this hearing as well. So we'll try to have answers to your questions and take all of your questions into consideration. And okay, I see there are no more raised hands. So if no, I do see one. Aaron Mills.
I'm sorry, I already spoke, but I just have one question, and I know we're not supposed to engage in questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, you had your 3 minutes. So
I-
if you
I
want
just-
to send a question to us, that'd be fine.
Can you just tell us that you will not close on the property and the purchase offer, the purchase contract for Tishner Point will go into the next meeting and it will not become solid between now and then?
I can tell you the meeting's going to be, nothing's written. We're not ready to do anything right now. I can tell you that. Okay. Does that answer your question?
So between now and the next meeting, no action will be taken to make the purchase contract that is currently existing hard, even if the two appraisals come back above 5.3 million.
We will address all that a little bit more at the conclusion of this, if that's okay with you.
Sure, thank you.
Kathy, maybe I can help out a little bit there, just so everybody understands. As the town manager, I can only act or execute documents once the town board has authorized me to do such. And there is nothing on the agenda this evening that would give me the authority to do that.
I can add a little bit to that. The purchase contract, there is a purchase contract, just like anybody might sign when they buy or sell a new house. But this purchase contract for the Tishner Point property is specifically subject to a permissive referendum. That means subject to town law section 90 through section 94. And Mr. O'Brien, I think, can probably assist with the specifics. If a certain number of people sign a petition and submit it to the town clerk, it will get put onto a special election. So this is not something that can close before that process concludes.
It's also, if I could just add, subject to the board has to approve it in general. And as Doug pointed out, It's not on the agenda. We would have to have another meeting or vote on it specifically. And we're not at that point right now. So all the things that we have to take into account before we would approve it, which is all of the things we're listening to tonight, have to be done before the town board would take action. So if you read that purchase contract, it says subject to town board approval. Okay. All right, Ms. Maida.
Hi, thank you for this meeting. Doug, thank you for a wonderful presentation. My comments also center around traffic and safety. I respectfully request that the board review the public survey that they conducted between November 2017 and May 2018, and in particular, questions 15, 16, and 17, in which they were surveyed to the primary barriers for safe cycling and safe walking on Westlake Road. And if you look at the weighted averages, shoulder width and shoulder pavement are a concern, lack of designated bike lane, motor vehicle speeds, that was for the cyclists. For walking, shoulder width and shoulder pavement quality, motor vehicle speeds, and inadequate bike and pedestrian and safety signage. And when they, in this survey, question number 17, for the amenities they would most like to see, again, the weighted averages points to improved or widened shoulders, shared use paths, traffic calming measures. But my concern is not in public access, but by adding additional traffic. And we can't just assume that people will show up at these facilities and just bring a kayak or canoe. The likelihood that they would go for a walk along Westlake Road or ride their bike, I think proposes a very big risk for the town. And so I would encourage you to just revise and take a look at that survey and perhaps first invest money in what the public requested back in 2017 and 2018 to make Westlake Road more safe. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I understand Ryan Stachuk has a question.
Nope, just comments. Thank you. My name is Ryan Stachuk. I live up on Ketchum Road. This parcel is gorgeous. What an absolute beautiful gem this is. And I really think it warrants support on behalf of the town, but I would say that it should go out to the vote of the people. This should go as a referendum out to the people to decide, along with the RSM project. Why not put two referendums out to the people? If we're going to do one, we might as well do another. Put it out to the public. Let's see what our community wants to do. This is a gorgeous piece of property that would really preserve a lot of Lakeshore, speak on behalf of our community and how much we value Canandaigua Lake. Unfortunately, we're reacting. I really think that we need to consider developing a program where we can be more strategic about these types of purchases and acquisitions. Other communities, such as Fort Collins, Colorado, have open space programs that generate revenue, and they can be more strategic with these purchases. So very, very supportive of this particular project, but I really think it should go out to the people for a vote. And I would say the same for RSM. If we're going to be putting this much money into the lakefront, that we should take it out to referendum. And I would encourage the town to do both of those out to referendum, even as separate or as a third referendum, combine them together. That's my comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to, if I could just so everyone's clear, before we adjourn this to the next time. I know, for example, Mr. Stachuk saying it's reactive. We're trying to be proactive and we're taking everything into consideration. Given our current situation, we do have open space plans. We do have, we frequently work with Finger Lakes Trust, all other sorts of things. As we've said over and over, this is a piece of property that came to our attention. The Cook's property that was mentioned earlier sold. It was one that we considered. It was sold right away. So we decided that when this came up, given the current climate of real estate on the lake, we had to move quickly. So we were looking forward, looking to how quickly it might sell. It might not. We haven't made any decisions about how this will proceed. Everything's on the table: referendums, permissive referendums, not doing it at all. We're in the hearing stage, so I don't want anyone to think that this is something that we've made our minds up on. I think it's a beautiful piece of property. I think it would be nice to have, but under the right conditions. So we're going to continue this conversation. I see there's at least one other person that has a question, a comment, and we'll continue this at the next time. So,
Kathy, can I talk now?
yeah, is this on this piece of property, correct? Go ahead.
Yeah, Tickner. I was shocked to hear that you actually charge for use of Campananda. I mean, the fees you get in there have got to be nominal. Why don't you do the improvements there, open it up to the public, and not charge anybody? Your use would go over the top. Then people would have free access to the site. They want to reserve a cabin or something, I understand that. You got to do it ahead of time. But in order to charge them to go onto the site or use the site is preposterous. In Monroe County, you got Mendon Ponds Park, Powder Mill Park. It's all open to the public, free of charge. And that's the way it should be.
Okay, thank you. If somebody identified as Galaxy Tab A7. If you could
Hello,
state
can you
your
hear
name.
me?
I can hear you. You can tell us who you are.
Okay. Yes, this is Mike Yarger. I live in Rochester, so I don't live in Canandaigua, either the city or the town. I pay taxes for the city, the county, but not the town. So I wouldn't take my comments as strongly as I would take other people's comments who have to pay the taxes there. That being said, just some quick points. Eric Cooper, I didn't realize that you were moving on, and I congratulate you on that. Doug, you did a great presentation. Ray Henry did a history, I think, of Titchener Point. And he talked about how that location used to be a natural science camp. And I would love to see that location used as a natural science camp again. I think that would be a great use of that space, whether it be done by the town or some other entity. I know there is a nonprofit organization running some type of a natural school in the area. So that may be a possibility. But I've always strongly advocated for more public access to the lake, whether it's in the city or in the towns. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see we have Ling Ong. Would you like to be heard?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to join you. I just want to add one more thing as a cardiologist. I think this is the wrong time to put people together, especially with the presence of this COVID pandemic. I think swimming is probably not the right good idea. Mixing people within in the park is also not a good idea at this time. I'm not sure when we will be over this pandemic. It could be 2024, 25, or even later than that. So I don't think it's the right idea to have people congregate in one area, even swimming, and you have to swim 6 feet apart or sit down 6 feet apart. I think that should be considered. I think we are a bit premature of deciding to acquire that property. Besides, I live in Titchener Point for 20 years, and I love that place. But certainly, opening a park next to a residential area is probably not a good idea. I just want to make a comment before I ran out of my battery here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. I don't see any other hands, but we are going, if I could have a motion, we'll continue this to at least the January 29th meeting and probably beyond. We'll look into all the comments that have been made, and please feel free to reach out to us individually as well with comments, questions, etc. Okay. Can I have a motion to continue the hearing?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have a public hearing on the proposed local law to rescind the tax cap override for the 2021 budget.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of opening the hearing on the proposed local law to rescind the tax cap override?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Would anyone like to be heard with regard to rescinding the tax cap override?
Elsa, do you have water in here? Is this yours?
All right, I don't see anyone else on this. All right, I'm just gonna wait another second to make sure. I don't see anyone. Can I have a motion to?
Close the public hearing.
Thank you. Have a second.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I declare the public hearing pertaining to resolution 2021-005 is now closed. Thank you, everyone. Next, we have reports of town officials and department heads. Jim Fletcher.
Everything is good in the highway and water department. I have nothing to report. Any questions?
I don't see any. Pam Post. Feel like
Yes, I did submit the report from the assessor's office for January. I have nothing further to add unless there are some questions.
Okay, I don't see any questions from town board. Town historian, there's no one here, I believe. Town clerk, Jean. You're muted, Jean.
Unmute. Thank you. Sorry about that. My report was attached to the agenda, and I have nothing further to report. Does the town board or anybody have any questions?
Do not.
Oh.
All right, Eric, anything from planner?
I submitted my report. It was actually perhaps a surprisingly strong year for permitting and planning. Probably something we didn't expect at the beginning of the year, at least in March. As Doug mentioned, I accepted a position to be the director of planning for the city of Niagara Falls. So we're going to work on a transition, making sure everything runs smoothly as I leave and as the town looks for a new planner to fill this role. I expect to remain on part-time and just help out as best I can during that time.
And thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate that greatly, especially given everything going on in our town and world right now. A little consistency is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for being willing to do that. And thank you for your service and good luck.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure working here.
Does anyone else have any questions for Eric? All right, seeing no hands. Doug, anything you want to report?
The town board knows this. In addition, Eric, again, thank you for all of your service and for staying on. And also, I'm losing another longtime staff member in Samantha Pierce, with this being her final week and her becoming the Village of Perry administrator. So great opportunities for both Sam and Eric, but I am going to sorely miss them. I want to share with you fantastic news. I just have to share this with you. It's awesome. This comes from our court clerk, Kristen. She sent me an email late on Friday. It says, Doug, not to toot my own horn, but I wanted to let you know I finally got through the errors and backlog. IT is like a 100-pound, it's like a 100-pound brick that's lifted on my shoulders. I thought you'd want to know the court is down to 0 CDR errors, 0 TS LED errors, and 0 ACD selling of old, the sealing of, the old marijuana records. It's been a long day. It was a long haul, but I am there. So congratulations to Kristen. She's doing a phenomenal job for us in the town court office, and just super happy that she's been able to get through all of that backlog that was there and get all those errors corrected for us.
Thank you. Okay, supervisor, deputy supervisor, the monthly financial reports are included. I just want to let everyone know, people have been asking about COVID vaccinations. Keep tuned to the public health Facebook site and or the public health website, Ontario County Public Health. Their first vaccine clinic drive-through is Wednesday, and that is already filled. That's 1A. 1B, I think there's still people in 1A that need to be vaccinated. What's holding it up right now is getting the vaccine, as I understand it. But I'll try to keep everyone informed, and we can post stuff on our Facebook page as well. But if you need that information, they are posting it on their website, but I will try to keep everyone informed, but I don't want to give bad information since they're the best information on that. All right, reports of committees, boards, and commissions. Finance, Linda.
Nothing further right now.
Okay. Planning, Terry.
Nothing at this point, Kathy.
Thank you. Environmental, Jared.
Nothing at this time.
Ordinance, Gary.
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Planning board, I don't know if Chuck is still with us. All right, I don't see anything, but if you're there, you want to jump in, let me know. I don't see anyone from Doug. Do you want to say anything about environmental conservation?
Just to let you know, we had a very long meeting the other night. We have 2 vacancies on the ECB. The ECB is recommending the appointment of Rocky Palomini to one of those vacancies. So we'll have that on your agenda for the January 29th meeting likely.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anyone else from any of the other committees. We have our next privilege of the floor, if anyone would like to be heard. Okay, seeing no hands. We'll now move on to resolutions. We have no continued resolutions. Our new resolutions, we have resolution number 2021-001, acceptance of the monthly financial reports.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-002, acknowledgement and authorization of budget transfers by town manager.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-003, elevator maintenance agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? I'm sorry, I almost missed you there, Jared. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Resolution number 2021-004, authorization for town manager to purchase Astor Campground Manager for parks reservations.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-005, adoption of a local law to rescind the tax cap override. Local law.
So
number-
moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-006, acknowledgement and confirmation of organizational meeting resolutions for the calendar year 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-007, Association of Towns 2021 Annual Meeting Delegate Designation.
So moved. So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Jean, thanks for being willing to do that for us. Keep us posted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-008, accepting resignation of full-time planner and setting hourly rate for part-time planner.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Just thank you again, Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution number 2021-009, accepting resignation of full-time human resources and payroll coordinator and setting hourly rate for part-time human resources and payroll coordinator.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, if there's no objection, I would like to block resolutions 2020-010 through 2020-012.
2021.
Sorry, 2020.
Don't go back to 2020.
I'm not going. So let's try that again. Block resolutions 2021-010 through 2021-012. There's too many ones and too many zeros. Can I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I believe, all right. Next, we have approval of town board meeting minutes for December 21st, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, corrections, deletions? Okay.
Nope.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have payment of the bills. Jean.
Yes, there's a utility abstract dated January 4th, 2021 of $113,153.53. And these are the 2021 expenses. The general fund of $76,269.18. Highway fund of $31,349.38. And the water districts of $5,534.97. The utility abstract dated January 4th, 2021, totaling $538,875.72. And these are 2020 expenses. The general fund of $21,470.32. Capital projects of $516,027.39. And water districts of $1,378.01. And a special abstract dated January 5th, 2021, totaling $250, and it's a 2020 expense, and that's for the general fund of $250.
Okay, Jean, I know you said January 5th. Our agenda says January 6th. I don't know if it makes a difference on that special abstract.
Okay, it's 6. We'll make it 6.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries for payment of the approval of payment of the bills. Thank you, Jean. We have our next privilege of the floor, if anyone would like to be heard. Okay, seeing no hands. Any other business? I don't see any of that. Our last privilege of the floor. I see none. I know we have a request to move into executive session. Doug, do you expect, or anyone else expect any business after the executive session?
No, I do not expect any public business after the executive session whatsoever.
Okay. Could I have a motion, or Doug, could I have a motion to move into executive session? And the purpose of which is for the employment history of a particular individual on three separate matters. Is that
So
correct?
moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And before we go in, I just want to thank everyone for joining us, and please reach out to us with any questions and concerns that you have. Thank you very much.
And
I got a quick question. Is it just Doug that's joining the executive
sorry.
session, or is Chris Natter?
and the
I
town-
assume Chris, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes, is the answer to that.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night, everybody.
You too.
Good night, Eric.
Town board, if you can just give me a moment for logistics here.
Yep.
Chris, you're joining us visually now, a video.
I've been able to see you guys this whole time.
Well, yeah, you could see us, but you didn't want any of the residents to see you?
I would not subject them.
All they have is a name, but they can track you down.
That's fine. If they're willing to go that kind of effort, that's fine.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I believe everybody from the waiting room has now been readmitted to the meeting and we are recording again.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I don't think we have any further business, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in
Nope.
favor?
Aye.
Hi,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Have a good
Bye,
night.
guys.
have a good night, everybody.